What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel and check out the content. And with that being said, I want to speak on a topic about LeBron James, right? I want and my topic is basically like the media and how the media right now is switching up on LeBron James. And I've lately I've seen other content creators talk about the same thing, right? And I said this a while ago. I'm not patting myself on the back, but I said this a while ago that the media was going to switch up on LeBron James. And basically my thoughts were then my reasoning was then is because basically that's what the media do, and that's what they do. They build these athletes up or entertainers up. They build them up, and then later on, they tear them down. It's almost like it's a game to certain players or certain people, right? Um, but some people have been saying because LeBron James, he had, he's making enemies and things like that. And it's true that he's rubbed some people the wrong way. Like in the media, he what's the young lady name? Michelle Beadle. They had falling out. Who else? Rachel Nichols. And as of late, it's been Stephen A. Smith and Mike Wilbon, right? And so once Stephen A. Smith and Michael Wilbon came on board, then it's become like more and more obvious to people that like the media is switching up on LeBron. And I think that LeBron knows this now, or if he don't know it now or see the writing on the wall, I don't know. LeBron James, he's got to be blind. But I saw this coming, like I said, a long time ago. And the thing about the situation that LeBron James is in, he's not like back in with Mike and Kobe. Basically, all Mike and Kobe really had to do is just play basketball and kind of keep a low profile, right? But in this age of what is it, like social media, they you get a false sense of like control, like you are able to control the narrative. But you have to remember that the narrative that you're trying to control is based on somebody else's platform, right? And so once you still have a limited amount of control. And I think that LeBron James didn't really, he didn't realize. I don't think he realized until it was too late, until until the media just really just switched up on him. I think as of late it's become apparent to him. And like I said, he's in a different situation than what Mike Jordan was, what Kobe Bryant and Magic and Larry Bird. All those guys, they had some situations probably in their careers that that they probably didn't want to get out to the media. But uh, they also just was the kind they all of those guys also kept low profiles as much as they could. Certain people in the media didn't report on everything that those guys did, any indiscretions that they did. And so some of the stuff got swept under the rug. But this situation with LeBron, I think, is almost like this situation with LeBron and social media is almost like a test case. He's the first real player to come along during the like I said, the social media experiment. And like I said, they allowed him to have the false sense of control and almost like like you can write your own story and you can um tell the things from your perspective, the player's perspective. And also they allow LeBron James to think that he had more control. They call it LeBron James era, like the player empowerment era. And so I think it was all a setup just to give LeBron James just enough rope. Like they said back in the days, just enough rope to hang yourself. And so what's going on with LeBron is, he just made so many mistakes during his playing time. Whereas though instead of trying to like just focus on basketball and improve his game and chase after as many championships as he could, he chose, in my opinion, he chose just to put out some false narratives. And this, that's where this that all that rope comes into play, because now, you know, people are being able to, they always got to see behind like the curtains. Like everybody who knows basketball knew that most of the people think that LeBron James is not the GOAT, right? But when LeBron James had, all the media on his side, and then a lot of the pundits and all that stuff was on his side, they could constantly like push that narrative, and there wasn't no pushback. But then LeBron James he just continued to feed into that narrative and believe the hype and believe like what people were saying about him. And he just dug himself a deeper and deeper hole. And so by him not focusing on basketball, and because if had he had the same type of drive in basketball, like as a Kobe Bryant was, or those guys back in the day, and he was just focusing on basketball, it would be a lot less easier for this like what's coming down the pike. It would be a lot less easier for this stuff that's coming down the pike towards LeBron, for you to like to come after him. The Bronny situation, like his situation with his son, um, you know, I think that right there, I think that's still going to come back to bite him. So many players are now coming forward. They feel emboldened now to to speak out about the kind of teammate he was, and all this stuff. And so, like I said, his situation in a lot of ways, LeBron's situation in a lot of ways was no different than Michael Jordan's. Players today are speaking up against LeBron, right? People who played with him and didn't really like him, they speaking up. But Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant also had people who played with them, who really didn't, who they didn't get along with him, and players who they didn't like. But it was a different era. And so now in this era, and because others control these platforms, and this narrative is now allowed to get out. And so once this narrative get out, they can almost like um, turn LeBron James, in my opinion, into a villain. And I think that the way you the way he could have avoided this is just by looking and knowing the history of like entertainment. Basketball is a part of entertainment. And so to some people, like, this is a game. Like, once they build you up or allow you to feel like you're this big, and you have so much control over your life and so much control over your career, then that's when the powers that be come by and they just tear you down. And so LeBron is pretty close to retirement. He may have like about 2 years left in the league, and so much different allegations and stuff about like the PEDs. you know um that might come back and rear its ugly head. This thing with his son Bronny James, I think that's going to come back. Stephen A. Smith is really, I mean, he's the falling out between Stephen A. Smith and LeBron James is really getting so much, like, he's getting so much run out of that. Like, Stephen A. Smith won't let that go. He every opportunity Stephen A. Smith got, or is getting to talk about that situation, he's continuously going after it. So, and that just shows me that there's a like the tide for LeBron James has really turned. and we're about to see a situation with LeBron that we have never seen before with any other professional basketball player. Um, you know, and I think that they are, like I said, this these media people and everything, they like to build you up and then they'll tear down their superstars. And I think LeBron James is going to experience that just like a lot of other superstars experience. But I think that the level to what LeBron James is going to experience this is going to be a lot more it's going to be a lot worse than what other athletes have experienced. I think Michael Jordan got his wake up call when he was with the Wizards, right? And so the Wizards owner basically just lied to him and told him that he was going to sell him that team. And then if Mike held up his end of the bargain, so Mike held up his end of the bargain, and they reneged on it and ran Mike out of town. And so after that, Mike went and got the Charlotte, whatever they call, I don't know what Charlotte basketball team is called, the Hornets. So Mike went down there and got the Charlotte Hornets. But and that to Mike, I think, at the time I remember what happened to Mike, and I was like, wow, how could they treat Mike like that after what Mike did for the Washington Wizards? But to these guys, they don't, like if basketball is Mike's life, this basketball was Kobe's life, it was all of those guys, they put their heart, soul, and everything into basketball. But to certain people that like these games really don't, they don't mean a lot to these people. They don't really move the needle, And so when you expect loyalty and you expect that if you do certain things for the league, you expect that you are going to be repaid. But these, certain people, they don't really see it like that. And so when you're dealing with these type of peoples, you need to know the history of the league, and you need to know the history of like how these things operate. So when you move up the ladder into these different rooms and stuff like that, then you kind of know what to expect, you know. And so that's why I think that LeBron James, once he retire in a year or two, I think I think it's just going to be a big storm surrounding him about some of the things that went on in his career. Um, yeah, I think it's really going to get ugly. And so now signs of that are those signs really coming through with, like I said, with the media, Stephen A. Smith switching up on him, Mike Wilbon switching up on him. And if you notice, Shannon Sharp and Nick Wright are not really going as hard for LeBron as they used to. I mean, they used to really like their arguments for LeBron they used to really be like demonstrative and really dramatic and really, got loud and try to push that. But I've noticed like within the last few weeks, they Shannon Sharp and Nick Wright not really going as hard as they used to for LeBron. And so and like I've been saying for months, and people may say, man, what's you reaching and all this other stuff. But if you just look at the history of how they treat athletes and entertainers and stuff like that, once they no longer have any use for you, then they will tear you down, just and that's just what they do. And if you know that, it's best, I think it's best not to try to throughout your career, it's not try to exercise power when you have power, or exercise leverage when you have leverage. The prudent thing would be to do is to try to maintain like good relationships. That don't mean, kiss people butts, but right. But sometimes you have leverage, and it's wiser to use finesse in those situations, because you don't want to leave a bad taste in people's mouth. Like, you know, um, in certain situations, like when he was beefing with what's the young lady, Michelle Beadle, right? In that situation, those type of beefs, you kind of leave that alone, or the beef that he had with Rachel Nichols. And I told people the same thing about the Stephen A. Smith, like you gotta leave that alone, because those people, once once they get the green light from the powers that be to, and they let you know that you're no longer untouchable, then those are the people with the platforms and the voices who will be able to come after LeBron. And so it's starting, and I don't want to see these people like bash LeBron or take him down. I just thought that LeBron did himself a disservice when he kind of, said put himself along like he was the GOAT instead of just playing hard and letting his actions speak for himself. you know, that would have been the best thing to do. All the other guys did it. You don't see Kobe never really tooted his own horn as far as like that GOAT conversation. Magic didn't do it. Bird didn't do it. Mike didn't do it. You didn't see Isaiah. That you leave that to the media and to the fans. You let those people argue about it, but you don't campaign yourself for that. Don't put, I think it was a big mistake for him to have his son drafted at number 55. If there's any backlash from that, it won't fall on the Lakers. All of that stuff is going to fall on LeBron James, because they're going to point to player empowerment. And so all of that stuff is going to point to LeBron James. They could say that LeBron James held so much leverage that the Lakers, Jeannie Buss and the Lakers felt like they had to draft LeBron James. And so uh who's gonna say that that wasn't the case? Most people are gonna believe that. And so, like I said, the media is switching up on LeBron, and we'll see more, you know, of more evidence of this as time move on. I think we'll see more evidence of this. But that's my take on it. Make sure to like and subscribe. Also, don't forget to leave a comment, and I will check you all out in the next video. Peace.